Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Nikki LaFoyle, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to make one of these Visor tissue holders so that you can have your tissues handy when you're doing your summer road trips. A lot of times I'll have my travel size little box of Kleenex, but it's in the center console, and then it gets kind of churned up with everything else that's in there, and then you don't know when you're out. But with this, it's right there. You can see how many you have left. It's really handy to get to, and you're not clogging up your center console with more things. So this project is really easy, and the steps are simple, and you can download the PDF with the full step-by-step instructions. There's a link below this video for you to download that, and so you can have that for reference later. But I will walk you through it all in this video. So the fabric requirements are very small. We just need a little bit of fabric and some elastic, and we can make this cute and handy, useful little project. So let's get started. So in the instructions, it says you will need a 10.5 by 24 inch rectangle of fabric. And I made that rectangle size for your typical size of Kleenex, which I think is pretty standard. So I'm using canvas fabric. You can, of course, use a quilting cotton. I like the canvas just because it gives it a little bit of sturdiness on its own. But if you have a beautiful quilting cotton fabric that you want to use, by all means use it. I would recommend interfacing the wrong side with some lightweight interfacing. So I'm going to switch my camera here so you can see my workstation. So we have our 10.5 by 24 inch rectangle of fabric. And we're going to start by folding this in half, right sides together. And I'm going to stitch my short raw edges using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'll bring my machine in here. And the elastic that I'm using, our only other supply is that elastic. And I used a 3/4 inch elastic for the sample. And the one I'm making today, I'm using 1 inch wide elastic. So you have some play there and some wiggle room. If you want to use a slightly narrower elastic, that's fine as well. Just something to hold it on your visor. Share Bear says, I love your sewing tutorials. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Share Bear. That's so kind. These are fun for me to do. I'm glad you're enjoying them. So we're going to press open our seam here. My fabric finger presses pretty well. Otherwise, I would take it over to the iron and press that. So press that seam open, and then we are going to turn this right side out. And I want to find the center. So I'm going to fold this just quickly in half with the seam on one side just to finger press over here to find the center. And then I'm going to fold this so that my seam matches that center mark. So I'm centering my seam on the wrong side there. Flatten that out. And then we want to press our folds on each side. Now, I'm not 100% sure how standard visor sizes are, but you might want to just go take a look at your visor in your vehicle first. before you cut your elastic. So that's the one thing. I just took that to my iron and gave that a little press on each side. So before you cut your elastic, mine are 2 10-inch lengths, and that was enough to go around my visor. But you might just want to double check that against what you have. So we are going to now just edge stitch this edge. So we're top stitching, but we're going just about 1/8 of an inch from that fold. And that just kind of holds our fold in place. And I'm using a little starter square here just because I'm going quite near to the edge. So just about 1/8 inch from the fold. And if you're not super confident that you can get some nice even top stitching, use a thread that matches your fabric, and that will kind of blend in. Top stitching my other side. And the side of the visor that has the seam in it becomes the wrong side. So when you're stitching this, I just like to have the side without the seam facing up. All right. So we are top stitched on the fold. So there's my stitching. Just about 1/8 of an inch from the fold. Now what we're going to do is fold our top stitched edges in to meet at this seam line. So we have the seam side up now. Fold this in. And I want to lap this about 1/8 of an inch over that seam. So I'm kind of aligning the top stitching line with that seam. And I just like to have a little overlap in the center here. So our edges are overlapping so that the Kleenex doesn't all just fall out. It kind of holds it in there. So we're folding this other side over, and I am aligning my top stitching lines. And then we're going to stitch these short edges, again, using our 1/2 inch seam allowance. On one side, I'm going to flip it around, do the same thing on the other side. Okay. So there I have my sides stitched. And before I finish off these seam allowances, I like to just trim off those corners a bit because we do have a lot of layers right here. And I just want to clip out some of that bulk. from those seam allowances. And because this is folded over, like the layers here are folded over each other, such a small amount, you want to make sure that the same layer is on top on each side. Like you can see on this side, this layer is on top. And then I wasn't paying attention. So on this side, my other layer is on top, which is fine. The Kleenex is still going to be able to come out, but just keep that in mind so that the flap is the same on each side. Okay, now I'm going to finish off my seam allowances. So I'm going to select a zigzag stitch on the machine and just stitch over those seam allowances. Finish everything off on the inside so we don't have anything fraying. Okay. And same thing on the other side. Janice says, I just found this channel and love it. Used to sew, but it's been a long time. Used to make American Girl clothes to match my stepdaughters. Looking forward to seeing more. That's such a cute project. Well, welcome back into the world of sewing. I hope to see you at these live events more often. Okay, so my seam allowances finished. And then we can flip this right side out. Let me grab my point turner. That can help get these points pushed out. And when I push out my points, I get my thumb in on the inside, and then I put my point turner, put my point right at the point I want to turn out, and then just pop that out. And then we get some nice crisp corners. So there we have the beginnings of our tissue holder. Now, the last step is going to be attaching our elastic. So we're going to flip this over. And I want to measure from the short end, I want to measure 1 inch in. And then from this long edge, I want to measure 1 1/4 inches in. Now, here's another point where you might want to take this to your vehicle and make sure that your elastic is going to be far enough apart from each other, from here to here, so that you can still use the mirror on the backside of your visor. A lot of those visors will have those mirrors on the backside, and I didn't want this to get in the way of that. So you want to just double check. So this is fine for my vehicle. When I have this on, I can still, fold this down and then open up the mirror that's going to sit right between this elastic. But just double check that on what you have. And there's an instance where if you need to use a thinner elastic to make sure you have room there, or you can bump these over even more toward the short edge, you can make it work. So again, for me, I'm going 1 inch in this way and 1 1/4 inch in that way. And I'm just going to put a mark just to have something to align the edge of my elastic with. And we want the elastic, the raw end to be pointing in and the bulk of the elastic to be going this way. So I'm aligning the raw end of my elastic with that mark that I made. 1 inch there and 1 1/4 there. Now, when we pin this, we want to make sure we don't accidentally pin this front side. So I'm kind of reaching inside there to pin. And I want to make sure when I'm pinning that it stays straight, stays parallel to this short edge, perpendicular to the long edge. And then when we go to sew this, we are going to kind of have to tuck this corner, wrong side out again, so that we can get the needle in there without catching that front fold on it. So I'm going to begin by stitching the raw edge. I'm going about, 1/8 of an inch from this raw edge. I'm going to stitch, pivot. I'm going to stitch about a 1/2 inch down this long edge, pivot, stitch across, and pivot again to make a box. And that box just makes it very secure to attach this elastic. Oh, gotta bump back over to a straight stitch. There we go. Okay, so I stitch that short edge, and then with the needle down, lift the presser foot and pivot. And just to make sure with each pivot that you are not accidentally stitching your front flap layer. So make sure everything's laying flat. Pivot again, and then back stitch at the end to secure that. So there I have just a little box stitched at the end to secure that. Now the other side, it's the same kind of thing, but we have to sort of loop this around. And we're going to do the same thing here, 1 inch in from the short edge, 1 1/4 inch in from that long edge. So I'm going to loop this around and align my raw edge right at my mark. Reach inside that flap to secure this. Make sure that stays straight. And then we're going to do the same thing, kind of pop this corner right side out, or wrong side out, I suppose that would be. And then we do have, we have this to kind of contend with and stitch around as well. So I'm going to pop that right side out. Start by stitching that raw edge of my elastic. So if you do a lot of driving, a lot of traveling, even if it's not long road trips, these are useful to have in the car. Okay, so I'm pivoting, making sure everything stays flat. And just stitch about a 1/2 inch up the long edge before I pivot again. Okay, pivot it around to make that rectangle. So there's my rectangle on each side. Poke my corner back out. There we go. So there is my one side, and you're just going to do the same thing on the other side. Same process, an inch in from here, an inch and a quarter here, given that that works for your visor. And then this will be able to slide onto your visor. And I just took one of my Kleenex boxes and, opened it up and just took a stack to fill this up with. And then they just come right out just like they would from a Kleenex box. And you have it handy. Sometimes I will just tuck that back in there so it's not hanging out so much while it's hanging down there on the visor in front of me. So there you go. There is your visor tissue holder. Super handy when you're in the car, especially if, like me, you're sitting in the passenger seat, so you're the navigator, and you're also the person who gets things for everyone on long road trips when they need it. So I'm reaching back into the cooler to get somebody a drink, reaching up to get the tissues, reaching in to get the gum, whatever. So Share Bear says, I'm going to make this as a present for friends and family, then make a mini matching one they can carry in their purse or pocket. That's a great idea. You can use the same sort of technique to make this for the little mini travel size of Kleenexes too. So you can add a little pop of fun fabric to that. So there it is, easy and simple, just like I promised. Make sure to download the PDF if you haven't already. That has the full instructions, the supplies list, such as it is with our 2 supplies that we needed for this very easy project. So thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoy your project. Have a great day.